All right, testing the mic. We are gonna go live in just a few seconds. Woohoo! 2, 1, blast off! Fixing the camera. All right, I guess we are gonna start the stream off by saying hello world. My name is the Radical D. You can call me D. And the whole idea of this stream is that we're going to learn things together by just building. Also, this is my first stream, so stuff is going to go wrong. And immediately I'm feeling like I hate hearing myself through this mic. So I'm going to go change my preferences for a second so that I'm not distracted by hearing this slight delay on my voice. Hoo boy! Yup, it is the curse of having someone watching you where things will immediately decide to not work. Nope, that's not the right menu. Oh my god. Mixer settings? Aha. So we want to take the Yeti mic and say monitor off. Okay, that is better. Yeah, alright. Hopefully you can still hear me. Otherwise, this is going to be really sad when I'm done. Okay, so, yes, the whole idea of this stream is that we're going to make things together, and we're going to break them in the process. As you said, stuff's going to go wrong, but we're just going to get through it and do stuff together. I'm a programmer. I'm developing as my day job, but I'm also a musician. I went to school for music technology, I play guitar, and a bunch of other stuff, and I like to combine the two. So the whole idea of this is that we're going to build largely music-focused projects, and we're going to try to have some fun while we're doing it. I also do Ruby on Rails. We'll do some projects in that. Done some C++. We'll do that. I might even eventually try to learn Unity on stream, which I know nothing about, but again, we will learn together. Gonna take a nice breath and relax, and yeah, I guess just as more intro stuff, I feel like there's kind of a hole in the internet where when you're trying to teach yourself about programming, there is a lot of getting started and there's a lot of advanced, and there's not so much in the middle. So the whole idea of this stream is that I want to take you through the entire process. We're going to build things from zero, where we have a project idea, all the way up to completion, where we will actually upload it to my Gumroad, where we can sell our max patches and have games available to download and whatever else we build. So, let's jump right in. Oh boy. Yeah, I gotta stop being so nervous. It's a good thing I don't have any viewers right now, but maybe you'll see this on YouTube later. I guess a good place to start is to give you some idea of what we're going to be building. I'm going to pull up a Max patch that I have in progress. In case you don't know what Max is, it is a visual coding language. Nevertheless, definitely a coding language. It has a lot of idiosyncrasies that text languages don't really have, but it also has some advantages in that you can just connect little boxes together and pretty quickly see results. So this is something that I have called impossible shapes, and it is a delay in essence. We can put some sound through it. I'm going to go find a sample here. I gotta click over to the samples bit. Yeah, here we go. This is one I like to test with. And we can just hear how it sounds and make sure that we have audio. Yep, some nice little guitar. And the whole idea is that this patch has two voices, voices 1 and 2. And we're going to turn on auto record and auto random. And we're going to hit stop because we're not quite ready to go yet. And we'll give it a multiplier of 2, and we'll learn what all this stuff does. But I want to just dive right in. Some of these streams we're going to be working on in-progress projects and just adding features to them. And it'll be a lot like a video game, where you get to watch part 1 through 10 and then see the finale as we actually get something that we want to upload. So, you know, bird's eye view on things. Feel free to stop me if you have questions about anything, and I'll always do my best to answer them. I used to be a teacher, so, you can always grab me that way. But, yeah, we might start in the middle of things, and I will do my best to catch you up, but it's okay to not get every single little detail. It's still going to be fun, and hopefully you'll get some benefit out of just watching me do these projects and interacting. Maybe you'll have your own ideas you can contribute. I want to be a little bit of Bob Ross in this so that you can follow along or just watch. So we have to set some settings here. Voice 1, we want to say a note value. So we're going to tell it to do 1 bar. This would be a quarter note. This would be an eighth note, that kind of thing. And then it has a playback speed here. We have 3 choices: reverse, half speed, and double speed. And you'll see what that does when you hear it in a second. But each voice is going to record whatever we're putting into it for a certain length. So I'm going to say record length is 4. So that means 4 times this setting here, 1 bar. So we'll record 4 bars, and the playback length is going to be, let's say 1 to start off with. This number box is set up so it can't be more than the record length, because you can't play back more than what you record. So we're going to play back 1 bar out of these 4 bars that we record. I'm going to stop this for a second. Our second voice is going to record, let's say, quarter notes for the heck of it. And we're going to say the record length is 4 quarter notes. So that gives us 1 bar over here. And our playback length is going to be, let's do 1 again just to start with. And we have auto random on. What that does is it triggers randomizing the speed. You can see how right here this drop down changes every time I click this button. And that changes the speed of playing back the audio that we record. And it all syncs up with the Metro in Ableton. So we should stay, on the beat. And this auto record is going to switch back and forth between these 2 voices so that they take turns recording. And whenever one is recording, the other one is playing back. Or they might both be playing back, depending on how long your record length is. So every 2 times our length here, we're going to switch voices. I have auto on, I have auto random on, and then I just hit this shiny green go button. You can see this one is still recording over here because it's longer. And every time it switches, it should pick a new a new randomized speed. And we have a wet dry amount here as well. There we go, that's better. So now we have some of the original blended in with the recorded. And this does start to sound more musical if we add some delay to it. There we go. Let's give it a nice long delay. Let's see how that goes. And we can change our playback length in real time here too. Let's make this one longer so it'll be a full bar. We can also pause the auto random if we like the speed that we're currently at. So this one on the right here is at half speed, and this one on the left here is just reversed but at normal speed. There, now we're getting something a bit more musical. Add some reverb to it for the heck of it. There we go. Reverb is like gravy, it just makes everything better. Let's go 100% wet so we're only hearing the delay for fun. So this is the kind of thing we're going to be building. As you can see, this is not perfect yet. And I think that's a big part of the process, is that you have to understand that imperfection happens. I'm terrified to be showing this to people right now because part of my brain is like, oh my god, it's not done! It's not done enough! They're gonna hate it! And the reality is that we're gonna just finish it together. The main thing that needs to happen on this patch right now is we need to actually make some presets for it. You saw that I had to set a bunch of numbers here and click some buttons and turn up the amount until it got to this point where it was musical. So what we need is some initial values, and we need some presets so that it sounds cool right out of the box. And that is one of the things that we're going to be working on here. Let's hit stop. And let's jump right in, sure. So this is what a max patch looks like when it's opened up. It has to start up for a moment. Oh, thank goodness, there's no one in my chat yet. I don't know if I could handle that yet. I'm still nervous. Alright, so here we are. Hopefully you guys can see that. Yeah, looks like it's showing up here. Let's see. Let's hit stop, because we don't still need to hear this right now. Back to max. So this is called presentation mode, and this is the interface that you see when you actually open up a patch. Now let's unlock it and get into patcher mode. So this is the guts of the operation. And again, you don't need to understand all of this right now. We're going to be building a patch from scratch, as well as working on this one. And many more things, but you'll learn more about it as we start from zero. Right now, I just want to give kind of a bird's eye view preview of the kind of stuff that we're going to be doing. All the fun that you can have when you see how music and technology can intercept. So, let's start simple. This is the, let's see. Boy, it's always hard to say where to start, but plug in and plug out. These are two magical little boxes that just say, here's where your audio is going to come in from Ableton, and here's where it goes out. And in the middle here, you can see this is my amount knob. This is what controls the wet-dry balance between the incoming signal and the outgoing delayed signal. And it is sending some numbers. We can actually just take a look at this. We don't want to do an entire max for live 0 to 100 course here, because again, this is aimed at projects, not just the basics. But I want to sort of show you what these boxes do. So as I turn this dial, you can see that I'm getting numbers in here. Let's make it a little bigger. I think I can just zoom in? No, of course I can't. I'm used to text code at the moment because that's what I've been doing at work, and you can just zoom in as much as you want, but anyway, as I turn this knob, you can see that the dial goes from 0 all the way up to 99. And so we're sending that through a scale object here, which says take the numbers from 0 to 100. And actually, we're already finding little bugs to fix. This should be 0 to 99. And then scale them to go instead from, on the left, we have 1 to 0, and on the right, we have 0 to 1. So let's put a float number box after this so we can see the effect. Oh, I already have some in there. How handy. Never mind, let's delete this. So you can see now as I turn this, when it's all the way on the left, these number boxes say 1, but these number boxes say 0. And as I turn this up, the ones on the right go all the way up to 1, and the ones on the left come down to 0. So on the left, we're just taking our input from plug in. You can see we're saying send input to receive input, and we're scaling it where this is all the way up, this is 0, so we hear none of the dry input, and on the right, this is our actual wet signal being received here, and we hear all of it. When we multiply by 1, that is the maximum. So that is what controls our wet-dry. And let's see, here's our go and stop buttons, and they are being sent into here. This is a sub-patcher, and this is kind of where the guts of the operation really happen. So I'm going to say open original, and unlock this as well. And boy, you can see there's a lot more happening here. I'm not going to try to talk through absolutely everything here, but the idea is that we want to save some important settings here so that we can recall them. So in particular, let's just start with these two. This is what decides how our subdivision for what we're recording. So this is currently set at 16th notes. This is currently set at 0. And I have some notes to myself about how we're going to do this. Woohoo! So, this is something you're going to see a lot as I work. I always have a notes file open because I have a shitty memory. And there's always a lot to keep track of, and this makes sure that you're not retreading old ground and you have a trail of breadcrumbs to follow so you know what the heck you're doing. I've been working on this patch for months, so if I didn't have a notes file, it'd be easy for me to put it down for 2 weeks and then forget what the heck I was doing. So, these are my current notes on what works as far as saving presets. They use this important object called pattern storage. And in fact, I'm going to open up another patch because for something like this, it really helps to start simple. And so I made a little test patch that shows how these objects work. And for both my benefit and yours, let's open it up so that we can see what is going on. I think I put it over here. Yeah, so test pattern. Oh, it's MIDI, so we want to put it here. So, very much a simpler patch. We have an object here called pattern storage. We have a menu. We have a number box. We have a dial. And you can see that each of these things has an initial value to it. This knob is most of the way up. This one isn't. And that is being controlled by these objects here called pattern. Pattern is a magical and complicated and frequently irritating system that Max MSP uses to store presets. And what that lets me do is have some initial values here, but I can also double click and say my preset. And now you can see all of these things changed. And in fact, I can create more very easily. Say I'm a user of this patch, and I decide that this sounds really good when it's halfway, this sounds good when it's also halfway, I like this at 36, and I want this to be set to D for radical D. I just then go and hit I believe this is the save button, if I'm not very much mistaken. Aha! And now I can say my new preset. There we go. And now if I go and look back in that, I think I can load them either from here or back in the actual instrument, but I can say, there's the first preset, there's my new preset. And these are still set halfway, this still says D, so we know everything works. So this is what we want to copy from in order to be able to save things in our giant crazy patch. So let's take a look here. Let's open up our notes. So the idea is we have pattern storage with a master name. So we have pattern storage test here. So I'm going to need to add a pattern storage over to my Impossible Shapes patch. Inside of here you can even see actually, here are the actual things that we're keeping track of. We have my menu, my numbox, my dial, my test subpatch. So that's what we have in here. We have our menus in a subpatch, so we needed to be able to save those. Again, don't worry if you're not totally following this. Just chill and, see what the process looks like. We're going to be starting a totally new patch in a few minutes, which is going to use a PlayStation controller, because this is Twitch, and I like gaming as well. And what I want to do is make an instrument using a PlayStation controller, because fun. And we'll get to that. But for right now, we're going to try and just add this feature and sort of see what the process looks like of adding a feature. And just starting with those two menus. So back to our test patch. Here we are. And back to our notes. So let's follow this. First, we need a pattern storage object. And we need to give it a name. So let's put it over here, right in the middle of things. N for new object. Pattern storage. And we're going to call it Impossible Shapes. One word, just for safety. Bang. There we go. I'm also going to do a find to make sure I didn't already do this, but I don't think I did. Nope, we have one match. That's what we need. Beautiful. Moving along. Next, make UI objects with no scripting names. So that's like a UI object is like these buttons and things. And what we actually want to save, first of all, this menu and this number box. Let's make sure this doesn't have a scripting name. Scripting names live down here, and yes, it does seem to have a default one. We'll probably just change that. Yep, this has one as well. Those look like default. Scripting name number. Wonderful. Now, let's go back to our notes, and we'll just keep that in mind. So next, what we need to do... So yeah, we're going to want to delete those scripting names, I think. So we don't want this to conflict with anything. Scripting name, uMenu, bang, delete. Cool. So Max does indeed let you have no scripting name, even if you've already made the object. I wasn't totally sure about that, but these are the kind of things you just can't really store in your brain, and it's okay to not know everything. We're going to be Googling things on this stream, too. It's not cheating, and we're going to be looking at references, looking at documentation, looking at YouTube videos, whatever we need to just get the job done. And again, believe it or not, I do this for a living, and I gotta do that every day. It doesn't make you a failure as a programmer to not know everything. I see a lot of stuff about that. People being like, do I Google things too much? No, everyone Googles things. And if they say they don't, they're lying. Anyway, so, and back to our notes. Next step. So we need to make these pattern objects. These are the control objects that kind of wrap as an envelope around the things that we're trying to store. We want to have pattern, and then this will need a scripting name. And we have some notes here because we messed this up before when we were researching it. Careful with the scripting name. We don't want to change this later. And if you recreate the object, you have to change the name. One of those fun little Max idiosyncrasies. So when we're in a B patcher, we need to include #1_ at the beginning, and the underscore will be replaced with spaces. Okay, so that's because we have two voices, and everything that we save in those voices, each menu, we want those to hold separate values. That lets us be able to do... Jump back over here. This voice has 1 bar of record time, and this voice has a quarter note of record time. So we need to have a way to separate those. Alright, word. Parameter mode and mapping mode enable. Alright, we'll see what this is in a second. And then we fill in the initial value, and not under pattern storage. Again, these are tiny little details, and normally in another project, we'd be figuring this stuff out live and making the mistakes as we go. But I cheated a little bit here, and I did some research beforehand because this stuff is super tricky. So this will enable us to have initial mode checkbox under parameter mode. I'm just sort of reminding myself here. And long name will show up in automation. Okie dokie. So we need to say pattern. And then we need to give this a name. So this is the note value menu, I suppose. Let's call it... Yeah, note value is a good name. It's good to actually think about your names. And we need to remember to do #1_. Yeah, so this is going to be note value. I think we probably want... Do we want capital letters here or not? Let's actually delete this and check what we did in our test patch, because this step is important and I don't want to fuck it up. Pardon my language, but there's going to be swearing on this stream, because that's just the way life goes. Okay, so I used all I used all lowercase here. And, okay, so in my sub patch I didn't. So it probably doesn't matter. What else? Okay, cool. Still no one talking to me in the chat. That is just fine, because I'm figuring this out. And I want to just take a look at this sub patch. Again, just a very simple thing to make sure we are succeeding at our test. And in here we have... Let's go look at the scripting name. Scripting name, where'd you go? Yep. We are using underscores and capitals, so let's stick to that as a convention. Oops, I didn't mean to close that. Come back! Thank you. That's the sub patch. Alright, we'll get it back from Ableton. Oh, the curse of having people, even imaginary people, watching you. Open this back up. Okay, here we are. So, back to making this patter object. We want to say patter #1 underscore note underscore value. Boom. Sweet. And then we're going to want another one over here. Let's say patter #1 underscore record length. Let's think if that's a good name too. So note value, record length. That seems pretty friendly to me. I guess we can probably always change this stuff later. And yeah, so now what we got to do is open up the inspector and do this stuff. So we included our #1. Again, you'll see that in a second. Now we want to say parameter mode and mapping mode enable. Oops. Come back. All right. Parameter mode enable. Yep. Visible to mapping. That's what lets us automate things in Ableton. We want to be able to change this on the fly or as we record. And then, so we have long name and short name being copied in here. Good. What else did we need? Under parameter mode, we want to fill in the initial value. So we got to pick a musical initial value. Come back. So parameter, initial value. Right, so this is where I messed it up before. There's also an initial value under patter storage here. And this is one of those little max things that you just kind of have to figure out as you go. And every language has this kind of thing. But sometimes Max is very obscure with them. So I want to put my initial value here, because if I try and put it here, it does not work the way one would expect. So our initial value is going to be, I believe, let's say 3. I think that's going to give us whatever the third value in this menu is. We can probably check that. Our range is 0 to 127. Well, that's on the patter object. The patter object doesn't know about the menu. So our menu, however, let's look at the range on here. Ba-dum-ba-dum. Looking. Yeah, so we just have these menu items in here, and I think, here we can just check this. If I put a number box in here, and I say 3, then yes, that makes the menu change. Alright, cool. So that's what patter is going to be doing. It'll be sending a number in here, and on load, and that'll be our initial value. Back to our notes. We want to make sure we don't mess this up. So we did parameter mode, mapping mode. We filled in an initial value, and we already have a long name. So we good. Let's do the same thing on this patter object. Come back. We want to say parameter mode enable, visible to mapping, and an initial value. So if our initial note value is going to be quarter notes, let's give this a record length of 4. That's probably good. Initial value under parameter 4. Bada boom. And you can see initial enable is changed, and the initial value shows up here under patter storage, and that's good. That's the weird thing, is if I were to write this in here, it wouldn't show up here. It goes in the other direction. Just don't worry about that kind of thing. It happens. Next step. Connect the middle inlet of each patter object to each UI object. Here we go. Boom. And boom. Next. Patter storage inspector. Okay, we have to make sure our patter storage is set up correctly. And then we should be able to save and reload to see our initial values recalled, and use Ableton to save and make other presets. Alright, so we're going to save. We're going to close. We're going to check and make sure this has those things enabled. Again, these are little tiny details, and it's not really worth worrying about. Bird's eye view. Auto restore 1. Where the heck is auto restore? There it is. Auto restore is already 1. Beautiful. And save mode is also 1. Cool. We're good. And I guess I'll take a second to say, like, with teacher voice, that bird's eye view is really important to learning. There's all sorts of stuff that I do at my job that if I tried to understand every single detail under the hood all at once, I'd never get anything done. I just need to understand why something is there and what it's doing in the bigger picture. And if I need to, I can always dive in. If something isn't working, then yeah, absolutely. I'll go under the hood as much as I need to. But being able to function with the general understanding of how things fit together is important to being able to grow over time. So, to recap, we have this pattern storage object. It keeps track of the smaller objects that themselves wrap around the UI objects that we're interested in, the menus and the number boxes. So in here, we should see our 2 things that we created. And we do! Hooray! And now we can understand the mystery of what that #1 meant. So, we have canonic delay voice. That's our subpatch. Or bpatcher, rather. Pretty much the same thing. And you can see that #1 is now replaced with voice 1 and voice 2. So we have voice 1 note value, voice 2 note value, voice 1 record length, voice 2 record length. Everything's looking good. All right, so we're going to save this. I don't think... Oh, I accidentally created a thing. Delete, save, close. And back over here. Let's just delete this. And let's reopen it. So we're going to go back to Max for Live. That's our test patch. And this is an audio effect, so it's down here. Impossible Shapes 3. And hey, look at that, it worked! Oh my god! Huzzah! So, we can see this menu is set to 2N, and so is this one. And our record length is set to 4 instead of 0. Hooray! So we could keep going through that and keep adding pattern objects for the rest of the things that we want to remember. And we will do that. But I think that's a good start on this patch for today. That's the first bit of this feature. And oftentimes features are going to take, more than one stream. You never know. We might just get into the thick of things and keep going. But for today, I want to make sure to move on to our new thing and get started on that. But this is a victory. Let's get moving. I guess, let's see, I'm forming thoughts here. I just want to explain that, I really do treat this as a video game, and that's what makes my job fun, is, it's not irritating tasks that need to get done. It's more like, farming, or, running up against a hard boss over and over again, and slowly progressing through a long world to eventually reach the finale of a game. And here we're going to have, hopefully, completed things as our finale. And that's what I've always found it difficult to find on the internet when I've been teaching myself stuff, is it's easy to write hello world. It's easy to get started. And then once you've progressed past that intermediate state, you'll find blog posts about, here's how to do this super duper specific thing in C that you have no idea what it means when you're just starting out. But there's not a ton of stuff that goes through the entire process. So this is a little chunk that we've finished here. Little baby steps are what take you to completion. And taking your time and just enjoying the entire process. So, aight, new project. That means, let's just close this. New live. And we also need a new notes file. I don't really have a name for this guy yet, but we do need to have some goals. Let's make this text bigger. This is a super important step of any project. You want to have a specific goal. Otherwise, you're never going to finish because stuff is never perfect. We want to have something that we're trying to accomplish, some kind of problem we're trying to fix, some kind of thing that we're trying to make that maybe doesn't exist quite yet. Or maybe it does exist, but not quite the way that you are going to make it. That's the crossover between music and programming, is there really is an art to it. I'm sure there's tons of instruments out there that other people have made using a PS3 controller, but they're not going to be quite like this one. So my goal for this is I really like space rock. I like 70s psych rock, and I really want to make something that feels like playing a really fun video game. I like fighting games. I play Street Fighter with my husband a lot, and Mortal Kombat and stuff like that. And some of the most fun I have when playing those games is that some of them are button mashers. Like, when you play DBZ Fighters, you can pretty much just mash the buttons and combos will come out. But you can also kind of go deep with it and actually learn the combos, learn the moves, and really be able to get into the game that way. So I want this to be kind of both of those, but with a synthesizer. I want it to sound a little bit like... In fact, go listen to Space Ritual by Hawkwind, because it rules, and it has a lot of synths over top of it that pretty much just go like... That's my goal. I want it to do that. I want it to do that easily. So do psych rock synth stuff easily. Like button mashing in a video game. But, now this is the hard bit, I also want it to have combos. Let's just put it that way. I want it to be able to maybe just start out with some really simple stuff where it's just like square, square, triangle does a particular sound, but hitting square by itself does a different sound. Holding square should do something a little different than tapping square. Direction and square should do something a little different. And, yeah. I want it to be easy to approach, be able to button mash, but I also want it to have some combos. And, so yeah, those are our goals. Sometimes the goals are going to get a lot more in depth than that, but this one is supposed to just be fun. And the next thing after deciding on some goals is we want to actually have some steps to get there. First thing we need is we need to be able to connect the controller. And this is another place where I cheated a little bit, and I have a test patch that works, because there is really no benefit in you sitting here watching me swear at my computer trying to unplug and plug things in until I get something to work. Getting the PlayStation controller to connect is a little finicky. What I have found is, and let's just open up the patch for this. So we want to keep these steps simple. Baby steps, like I said before. We just connected up a menu and a number box, and that's it. And we got them to recall their initial values. That was a step for the delay. For this one, first step is just connect the frickin' controller and get it to send stuff that's usable. So the system I figured out for that is that you can plug in the controller and open your system preferences Bluetooth. Let's do that. And we should see connected here, and we do. And the funny thing to get it to connect, if you want to try this patch out on your own, in fact, when we're done, I will be sharing this patch with everybody. You can download it, play with it, modify it, share it with everyone else in chat. I'll have a Discord server set up here at some point where we can share things. And, yeah, so you plug it in, hold the PS button, unplug the controller, and then it says connected. That was kind of a funny story, honestly. I was messing with this forever trying to get it to connect. And finally, when I gave up in disgust and unplugged the controller, it worked. It likes wireless better. Who knew? But there we go. That's life sometimes. So, here is a funny little object called Hi. It stands for Human Interface, but I like to just call it Hi. We can poke it with, this is called a message box, and we give it the word menu. You can send objects in Macs, different kinds of things. We can send them either messages like this, or as we saw before, numbers. And in this case, when we send this menu, it populates this menu. And we can see at the top, we have our PlayStation 3 controller. Then we need to send it poll 10, which is a message that says start listening, start looking every 10 seconds for data from this controller. And let's open this up and we can see what we're actually getting here. We're not using this stuff yet, this is just default for audio coming in and out. plug in, plug out, like I said. And I'm going to just put a print object up to this HI here. And that will print stuff to this console. And we should see a bunch of crap as soon as we probably need to reselect this. PlayStation, yep. Hi, focusing on PlayStation 3 controller. Then we say poll, and oh yeah, huge stream of giant amounts of bullshit. We need to have a way to filter this to look for what we actually care about, meaning buttons and the joystick. So that's where this route object comes in. Route says, look for a specific number. You can see, if I unplug this, that we have, for every time we print something, we have two numbers. One on the left and one on the right. The one on the left is actually telling us where the number on the right is coming from. And through some amount of trial and error, I figured out that anytime we get the numbers 26 and 27, we're actually getting left X and left Y, so on the joystick. And what this route object does is it takes a pair of numbers and looks at the first number, and then anytime you get a number that matches that, it'll send the number on the right out. So, just to demonstrate this, I'm going to make a copy here. I'm going to say 26 for, oh, I don't know, let's say 42069. How about that? If I want to get that 69 value, then I would say route 420, connect it up, and we can listen on another message box here. And when I click this, 69. Nice. Let's get rid of that. We don't need it. But now what we can do is see that when I move my joystick, can you all see it? Woo! When I move my joystick left and right, then we can see over here that these numbers fluctuate. Let's print them out. So this is going to be left, and this is going to be right. Cool. Oh, sorry. This is left, right. This is up, down. That's what we're doing here. So let's disconnect this one. So now we can see my joystick is all the way to the left, and we have print 0 right here at the bottom. And when I go to the right, we have print 255. So we could do stuff with that. We can control a filter, we can control resonance, we could control volume. We'll figure it out down the line, but the important thing is that we got it connected. And let's connect the other one. So, so this is route 27, and I'm getting, at the top, when I have my joystick all the way to the top, we have 0. And when I have it at the bottom, we have 255. So hey, that's usable data. We can figure out how to do a Hadouken. Eventually. Maybe. That's down the line. And then on the right here, I figured out that 21 is the X button. I guess I'll connect that to a print as well. Boop! Prints 1 when I press the button, print 0 when I let it go. So we could use that to trigger a note. Cool. So there's a bit more work to do on this. We need to actually get the rest of the controls, and that's where we come back to our steps. I guess we probably don't need it this big, but whatever. I like big text, and I cannot lie. So connect the controller. We've done that. But within that, as our goals, we want to get... Let's just start off with... Get the 4 buttons. I guess we probably want the shoulder buttons. Might as well do that here. Get that done. Shoulder buttons 2, if possible. And left joystick. So we're getting that. We need to get the rest of these buttons. And let's see. So once we have that, the buttons are already pretty usable, but we want to make sure that the rest of our data is usable too. So make data usable, particularly the joystick. right now, we have something a little bit not intuitive. We have 0 at the top and 255 at the bottom. Most things in MIDI are 0 to 127. So, and also we have, when it's in the middle, our value is, I think, 130, something like that. And you can see that it kind of flickers. So we need to do a little work here to make this data usable. Let's put a print back in. You can see it kind of flickers. So on the y-axis, we kind of hang out. I'm not doing anything right now, and you can see we're still getting data because it's polling, it's listening. And in the middle is about 114, 115. We want to map that to be in the middle of the MIDI range, I would say. So 114, 115 should be 63, 64. And all the way up, we probably want that to be the maximum. We want that to be 127, not 0. And at the bottom, we want that to be 0 instead of 255. Buttons are already 0 and 1. We can work with that easily. So let's put this in our goals. So top should be 127. Bottom should be 0. Left should also be 0. And right should be 127. Next step, I would say, is make a note. Get some kind of noise maker and be able to trigger it with a basic envelope with a button. Let's make it so that as long as we hold the button, the note sustains, and when we change the joystick, the tone of the note should change with a filter. So that should give us the ability, and this is what we want for our steps, is we want a really well-defined, like, okay, this step is complete when we have accomplished this. So what we want is when we hit the X button, for instance, a note should start. As we hold it down, it should continue. And then as we change the joystick, we should get it to go a little bit. And that's a good place to start. From there, we can make things more fancy. And we can figure out more steps as we go too. Sometimes I need to plan these out more in advance. But for something like this, where we have a bit of an open-ended idea, I think it's okay to just start with a couple of steps. But we do have some specific goals. We really just want a synthesizer that makes cool sounds when you button mash, but also allows you to kind of do some more exciting things with more button combos. So cool. Let's get as far as the rest of our step 1. So I'm going to jump back into this max patch, and we're going to work on our data a little bit. We already learned about the scale object. That's really what we want to do here. Excuse me. Let's start with just the y-axis. So we know our data goes from 0 to 255, and we want it to go to 0 to 127. So we just learned about the scale object. And here, this is a good trick to know for Max. I don't have this stuff memorized. It's really easy to access the Max reference documents as a way to get started on your patch. Anytime that you click on an object and hold down click, then you'll get a reference patch, and you can actually hold down Command and click on it to unlock it, and then you can steal as much as you like from it. And it's not stealing, this is really what everybody does, because there's no way you'd remember all of this off the top of your head. It's just like Googling things for any other kind of coding. For Max, your real bag of tricks is in these reference patches. So, here's an example of, hey, there we go, scaling 0 to 127 into 0 to 500. So that's kind of what we want to do. But we know our data is going from 0 to 255. So those are our first two numbers. 0. And I'm going to use a decimal point here because, well, looking at these numbers, actually, they're integers. If we had decimals, we'd want to put a decimal in here so that Max doesn't round for us. But in this case, you can see in the Max window on the right, these are integers. So we're going to say 0 to 255. And then we want this to turn into 0 to 127. Let's just try that first, one thing at a time. I'm going to connect this to our y-axis and put a little number box in here. Oops, not that one. Derp. If I just hit I get an integer box here. I for integer. So we're hanging out here at around 55, 56, that's fine. And if I go all the way up, I get 0. And if I go all the way down, I get 127. Wonderful. Cool. So that's just backwards. We want to have 127 at the top and 0 at the bottom. So what do? We switch these last two numbers. 0 we want to actually translate to 127, and 255 we want to 0. So now when I hit my joystick and push it all the way up, huzzah, I have 127, and down is 0. Nice. Ba-da-ba-da-da. Let's do the x-axis. Should be the same thing there. I'm going to option drag to copy this object. Going to connect it up to this outlet here. Going to grab this integer box as well. Going to move this out of my way because, again, it's not doing anything. This is kind of the interesting bit here. And now, if I go all the way left... Oh, we're backwards again. Left is 127, right is 0. Okay, we probably want to switch that, because to me, left feels like less. You know, it's the way the number line flows. We want left to be 0. We want right to be 127. So, all the way left is 0, all the way right is 127. All the way up, 127. All the way down, 0. Wonderful. Look at that go. Cool. All right. So that's pretty good. Let's get the rest of our buttons. We may want to deal with this flicker a little bit later, but it's pretty chill. And I think wherever possible, it's nice to have, you know, we want this to be really interactive. We want it to not have lag. We want it to really feel like playing a game. So we could program some kind of a dead zone in here so that when you're not doing anything in the middle, we don't get this little bit of wiggle. But I also want the controls to be sensitive. So making this in such a way that the audio does not go haywire from just a little tiny bit of flicker in the middle, I think that would be ideal. Because that way we don't have to make the controls any less reactive. We just smooth out the audio a little bit so that if there is flicker, it doesn't sound bad. So yeah, let's get rid of this stuff. And we're going to figure out the rest of our buttons. So we know 21 is a button. I think I figured out that was X. Let's undo and see. Yep, that was X. Alright, cool. We want to clean as we go with Max, because otherwise these patches get way out of hand really quickly with all these patch cords and things. And so we have integer here. Let's put a comment in here. C for comment. We're going to say this is X button. I know I kind of already had this in place, but such is live coding. So there. 1, 0 when I press the button. And it's really fast, which is great. So, this is kind of everything else that route is receiving that doesn't match. If it doesn't match 26, 27, 21, it's going to come out here. So let's put a print back in. And we're going to see that deluge of data again. And we have to figure out what... Let's do square next. So, seeing a lot of... Let's see... 67 and 30. So these are probably tilt controls, because they also come by really, really fast, like the joystick. Let's route out some more of these numbers so we don't have to have all that noise in there. So I'm going to make another route. And let's get rid of 67 and 30. And now we'll take the output on the right there, and we should have a little less noise. Alright, still seeing a lot of flicker here. So, oh boy. What else? I see a lot of 63s and 28s. And none of these are going to be the buttons because they're constantly flickering. You can see that the X button is chill. Look at this number box over here. It's only changing if I hit the button. So none of these things that are flickering are going to be what we're looking for. So let's get rid of them. 63. 28. We don't care about you. Go away. Alright, still lots of stuff coming in. What else do we got? 69. Let's get rid of that, sadly. What else? What else? We got 65. Get rid of that. Okay, things are getting a little bit more chill. We have... This doesn't have a second value. That's very interesting. Might just be a connect message or something. But this is one of those bird's eye view things. I don't need to know what all these numbers do. I don't care. I'm only looking for the buttons. If I need to figure out what they do, I can figure them out later. But we don't care right now. So let's get rid of 237 and 236. Print. Okay. Looking a lot more chill now. We'll be able to see what we want soon. Let's get rid of 29. And connect this up correctly. Okay, the data is chill. Square. Hey, it's 46? Oh, no, 46 is a lot of... Oh, interesting. Not sure what 46 is doing, but anytime I press square, we are certainly getting a lot of 46. But I see a 22-0 in there when I let go of the button. So I'm guessing that that's what we want. And that makes sense because it's right next to 21. So let's put 22 up here in our master route. Make this bigger again so we can see what we're doing. And now we're going to move this guy over to the far right because that's our everything else outlet. And I'm going to make another integer box and comment here. Take a look. And hopefully this should be square. And it is. Hooray, we found it. So, I'm going to label that as square. And using the powers of deduction, so we don't have to go through this crap, I'm going to take a wild guess that either 20 or 23 or 24 is going to be the rest of our buttons. So let's just add those numbers in here and put a print in. And with any luck, these will be the rest of our buttons. This goes on the far right here. That's the everything else outlet. Might need that later, so let's leave it. And these three are going to print. So let's try triangle. Ah, crumbs. No triangle. Oh, there's circle. All right. So which one is that? Let's figure it out. Let's use some integer boxes. Let's get rid of this print. We're done with it for now. One of these was circle. There it is on the right. All right. So that would be 20. Sweet. So we know that 20, 21, and 22 are circle, square, and X. Let's get rid of these. And that red error message is just because we ran out of inlets here when I changed the object. No big deal. Let's get rid of our extra couple of guys there. And so this should be circle. Always label as you go. I am a big fan of trails of breadcrumbs. Circle button. Let's test. I'm also a fan of testing as we go. A lot. Because otherwise you're going to have to go and debug it later. Alright, circle. X. Square. Alright, nice. So reasoning that 23 and 24 weren't anything, I'm going to guess that this is going in the downward direction. Let's try 19 and see if that will give us our triangle button. Oop. Escape. Make this bigger. Take a wild guess here. Hey, there it is, triangle. Nice. We have 4 buttons. And hey, wow, I got a follower. What good timing. Thanks, Teeth Engraved. Very nice to have a follower, and welcome to the chat. Honk to you as well. I'm going to label this as a triangle. And, alright, we got 4 buttons and we got a joystick. That's a good freaking start here. Shall we go a little further and figure out our shoulder buttons if we can? So to do that, we got to put this route back in, and we're going to put back on print. I am like just overjoyed that somebody followed, and I think I know who it is, but that's just fine. So, print. Alright, we are indeed getting some shoulder button action. I see 42, I see 18, I see 68, and I'm doing the right R1. 42 is happening as long as I'm holding it down. Oh, interesting. It looks like it's reacting to pressure. When I press hard, I'm getting 255. When I press lightly, I'm getting 120-ish. That might be really useful later. That's super cool. Let's make a note of that. C. So, shoulder buttons. I'm going to put it down so I can type like an actual human being with both hands. Shoulder buttons. Maybe other buttons. I think I saw it with X. I mean, not X. I think I saw it with square. Are apparently pressure sensitive. And R1 is equal to 42. Alright, we have a little comment for that. We should put that in our notes as well to be complete, but we'll do that later. We still just want an on-off here. And I think, alright, I'm seeing 18-0 whenever I let go of the button. So, let's try that. I'm going to unhook this. I'm going to put 18. Scoot this over, make it bigger, and integer box. R1. 1 and 0, huzzah! And in fact, it seems to be continuing our pattern of counting downwards from 22. So, let's label this. We have whoops. Oh my goodness. We have R1. Let's move this out of our way. And let's take another wild guess, educated guess, and try 17, 16, 15, and see if those are the rest of our shoulder buttons. And if they are, I would call this a win and a good place to pause. I'm going to copy these over, and boop, boop, and boop. Hopefully one of these is going to light up. I'm going to do R2. Oh, there it is. So that looks to be 16. R2. Yep. Alright, cool. Let's do L1. And there it is. Nice. So that seems to be 17. L1. And big money, no whammy. There's L2. Alright, alright. Alright. I'm gonna call that L2. And look at that. That's our first goal accomplished. We have, let's clean it up a little bit. We have our joystick over here. Left joystick. X and Y. Going from 0 to, whoops. Yep, 0 to 127. We have our buttons. Let's say, let's just make these in a nice little configuration so we can actually see what they are. I'm going to make this a little bigger. We don't need this anymore. I'm going to leave this here because we will need this at some point very soon when we want to make sound, but today is not that day. I'm going to put these up here, line this up on the left, and so let's see, X is on the bottom, square is on the left, circle is on the right, and triangle's on the top. We'll make an actual interface for this later, but again, baby steps. Then we have, let's put the R's together on the right, R1 and R2. And let's put the L's together on the left. L1, L2. Nice. Let's hit save. Now let's have a little bit more fun, and we're just going to put this into presentation mode. Just going to grab these number boxes and comments, control click, add to presentation. And I guess we're going to want this menu and its 2 buttons here. And we can probably just clean this up a little more by saying load bang. Load bang happens whenever you open a patch. And when we open this patch, we want to trigger the menu to load, and we want to tell it to listen with poll 10. So we connect that up. We're going to want to see this in presentation as well. Make it a little bigger. Command-Shift-P for presentation. Yep. And now when I say Command-Option-E, we go to presentation mode. Now it's all clean. So there's our menu. Here's our joystick on the left. Here's our L1 and L2. Let's line them up. Command-Y to line them up. There we go. There we go. And this might seem superfluous, but it really helps things to do it as you go. Otherwise, your life will be miserable later when you try and do this all at once, and then you create bugs when you're trying to just clean things up, and it sucks. So, R1, R2. Put that up here. Line them up. Whoop. Line these up too. Wonderful. Everything's in order there. And then we got our 4 buttons. Let's put them on the right here. Boop. 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 And lock the patch. Save. And now we can close it. And with any luck, over in Ableton here, I'm going to close this. I'm going to reopen it. Oh, I have to do one more little detail. Have to tell it to actually open in presentation mode. So that's Command, comma to open up preferences. And we want to say open on presentation. Can we just search this? Nope. Oh, geez. Maybe it's Command Shift. How do I say open in presentation mode? Dang it, I always forget this. Inspector window? Maybe it's the patch inspector. Come on now. Open in presentation. I was just about to Google it. View, open in presentation. Close this. Hit save. Close this. There we go. It's all neat and tidy. I'm going to close it and open it just for superstition's sake. Alright, cool. Make sure this is going, and hopefully... Yep, there's our joystick. L1, L2, R1, R2, square, X, circle, triangle. And hey, that's our step for today. Rock and roll. And now we get to put a nice happy little done next to our step 1. We have 4 buttons, we have shoulder buttons, we have joystick, we have usable data from 0 to 127. Let's save our notes file. Space synth. Goes in my notes folder. And I'm going to call that a stream. Thanks for watching, any future viewers. And, oh, I'm being informed that there's food. Wonderful. Yep, so let's jump into stream ending. Thank you to anyone who is watching this in the future, and more to come.